Welcome back to the Let's Talk Sports Show here on Callan 105 FM. That was Whatever It Takes by Imagine Dragons, a beautiful song. I don't know if you're all Madden NFL 18 fans. You're probably not, Joe, because you don't look like the kind of guy that plays American football games, do you? No, not a chance whatsoever. Not a chance whatsoever. I've just realised that you're actually on mic 2 and not mic 1. So I did have you muted there, so it doesn't matter. But you are muted now. How are you doing, Joe? How are you doing?
Not too bad.
Yeah, I can hear you now. That's so much better. So much better. So much better for the listeners as well. So that was Whatever It Takes by Imagine Dragons. And we are talking about the Premier League today. As of course, the last day did take place yesterday. And what a fantastic day it was for Joe himself, because he is a Liverpool fan. Mo Salah, of course, breaking the all-time Premier League goal-scoring record for a 38-game season as he scored his 32nd goal against Brighton yesterday in a 4-0 victory at Anfield. Making sure that as well, Liverpool stay undefeated at home this season in the Premier League. And I think it's right in saying that the only team at home in all 92 Football League clubs to keep a record intact of not being defeated at home this season. Yeah. So fantastic achievement by them. Other results as well include Tottenham winning by 5-4 against Leicester City at Wembley yesterday.
What a game.
What a game that was, yeah. 9-goal thriller. I mean, you don't get many of those these days. Harry Kane trying his best to catch up to Mo Salah on the last day of the season, but unable to do so. He finishes in second behind the Egyptian king in the goal-scoring race. So Mo Salah finishes off the season with the golden boot. Moving on to Chelsea against Newcastle. Well, Chelsea needed to win this game in order to get into the top 4. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do so, and they were completely thrashed by Newcastle by 3-0. Perez scoring twice before after Dwight Gale's opener in the game. We'll talk about Conte in just.
Has anyone seen or heard from Jack?
Oh no,
I think he's gone to hide.
I imagine he's gone into hiding now, and probably until the FA Cup later this week. Broken promises last week as well on the radio about his pole position podcast. But yeah, never mind. I'm sure he'll turn up soon, especially if Chelsea win the FA Cup this weekend against United. Be sure to make sure that you check out the Let's Talk Sport YouTube channel for any preview of that game coming up later this week. Moving on to the rest of the Premier League results, Swansea lost by 2-1 against Stoke. So no matter what happened in that game, both teams were going down because Swansea needed the win and Southampton to lose, and there to be a 10-goal swing. So you can't see that happening. So Swansea were definitely going down. And City, though, they did win against Southampton at St Mary's by 1-0. Gabriel Jesus getting the key goal that not only extended City's fantastic goal-scoring record in the Premier League this season to 106 goals, but they now have achieved 100 points in the Premier League this season. A remarkable achievement for what is one of the best teams, really, that English football has ever seen. I mean, Joe, just quickly before we read off the rest of the results, because the next team that we are going to talk about is Arsenal. How do you see this City team comparing to the Arsenal invincible season of 03 or 04? Do you think it's better than that team, or do you think it's maybe still got a bit of way to go? Maybe do you think they need to win back-to-back titles before we can consider this City team better than that Arsenal invincibles team?
It's very, very close, of course, because obviously the big difference is City didn't go undefeated, Arsenal did. But City made the 100 points. It's all like swings and roundabouts. Yeah. Let's be honest. It's one of those. They've got one thing going for them, the team haven't. I think City have got, probably fair to say, better individual players than Arsenal had got. But then again, Arsenal had Henry and Perez. Arsenal had 3 or 4 top class players, but City have just got a full team of top class players. I think obviously they've got a good chance. City have. I think if they win back-to-back titles, you could say they've surpassed it. Mm-hmm. But obviously, being the only team in the Premier League era to be invincible, Arsenal, that takes some beating. Yeah,
it will certainly take some beating, and I don't think we'll see it beaten by any side in the near future. That's for certain. The money being spent in these transfer windows, really, really difficult to achieve a season like that again. But speaking of achievements, Arsene Wenger's time at Arsenal comes to an end after 22 years. On the 22nd minute as well, the fans at Huddersfield, I think it's still called the John Smith Stadium, applauded the Arsenal manager, for a fantastic achievement of managing the club over 22 years. Crystal Palace won by 2-0 against West Bromwich Albion. West Bromwich Albion going down to the Championship, unfortunately. And West Ham beating Everton. David Moyes getting one over his former club by 3-1 at the London Stadium. Good result for him there. Manchester United getting a 1-0 win for Michael Carrick's last game for the football club. Marcus Rashford getting that goal there, and Burnley losing by 2-1 to Bournemouth. So Sean Dyche's fantastic season ends on a bit of a low note there at home to Bournemouth. But nevertheless, it's not as low as what happened to Antonio Conte at Newcastle yesterday. 3-0 loss. Perez brace before Dwight Gale opener of the goal. Rafa Benitez finishing 10th in the table, but Antonio Conte's side really under the pressure now, because they won't be playing Champions League football next season. They'll be in the Europa League, and really they only have the FA Cup to try and save their season. But there's been a lot of mixed emotions really as to, does Conte deserve this pressure of what a lot of the media have given him? Because as far as I'm aware, Joe, I haven't really seen a lot of Chelsea fans say that they want him gone. Maybe they're reserving that judgment until after the FA Cup, because certainly 2 trophies in the first 2 seasons in the Premier League would be a fantastic achievement. Premier League, of course, last season, and if they're able to get the FA Cup by the end of this weekend, then it certainly would mark a decent time at the football club so far. I mean, what are your thoughts, really, Joe, on Antonio Conte? Do you think he deserves to stay on at Chelsea next season, or do you think perhaps the board will go over his head and find someone else in to replace him?
I said a few weeks ago that I thought he should stay on as manager, but I can't see Abramovich keeping him on. I think that's still going to be the case. I think regardless of whether he wins the cup, he'll still depart England in the summer. It's one of those. He's done well at Chelsea. Obviously, last season they won the league. It's going to be hard to double up. But if you look at Chelsea under Mourinho, they won the league one season in 2015, and then next season they were battling relegation, and they obviously finished 15th in the end.
They finished in 10th or something like that.
They finished 10th in the end.
Yeah, because they sacked him, didn't they? And they brought in. I forget who they brought in, but
Hiddink.
Yeah, it was Gus.
Gus
Hiddink. Yeah.
It's strange. It's very strange. But obviously, they haven't done too bad in the last couple of weeks, apart from yesterday, because they got a result against Liverpool. The draw against Huddersfield wasn't ideal, but Huddersfield were very compact in that game and should have all the credit there. It's strange. I think he's a good manager. It's just the lack of patience from the board doesn't help, does it? And like you said, the fans seem to be behind him. There's only 1 or 2 murmurs on social media that are fans, or you can't even really see if they actually are fans or whether the fans of rival teams pretending, sort of thing. Because there's one fan yesterday who was saying that they left the ground at half-time in tears because they couldn't cope or something. It's like, the club doesn't need that.
Well, at least they could get an early train back to London from Newcastle. I mean, that's quite a trek, so there you go.
But in tears, come on. All right, you're losing to Newcastle, but it's not like you lost the cup final yet.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the cup final pressure is coming up against Manchester United this weekend, who, under Jose Mourinho, have been the closest challengers to City at the top of the league, and that is still saying something, because they were 19 points behind by the close of the 38 games yesterday. I mean, does Conte then have to win this FA Cup this weekend against United to keep his job, to at least have some consideration for the job next season?
Of course, he's got to win it. As Gary Neville said, if he wins that this season and the Premier League and does depart, he's still done well in England, because he's still won 2 major trophies in 2 seasons. So that's something fantastic. FA Cup, people say, it's lost its magic. For me, it's still a big competition. It's still important, and every season Liverpool are in it. I want them to compete and try and win it. You want your sides to do well in the competition. It's a historic competition, and you want teams to do well. If Chelsea win it, then that's fantastic for Chelsea, and it's another thing on Conte's CV, another trophy. And it can only help him get his next job if he leaves Chelsea this summer. I think it salvages Chelsea season a little bit, but doesn't save it completely, because obviously they need Champions League football. But I think they'll sign big players regardless, because there's always this claim that, you can't sign big players unless you're in Champions League. But the thing is, Chelsea have done that in the past. They've signed big players without Champions League. They've kept Hazard when they dropped out of the Champions League a few years ago.
Yeah.
And won the Europa League in, was it 2013?
Yeah, it was.
So the whole point is, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's an odd one, really. It's an odd situation, because for any other side, especially like Liverpool, Tottenham, and before this season, Arsenal, if you finished fifth and got to the FA Cup, the manager would be praised. There'll be, it'll be considered a good season, and arguably it should still be considered a good season for Chelsea if they do end up in this situation where they only win in the FA Cup. But if you look back to where they finished last season, of course, when they finished champions, 93 points overall, whereas compared to this season, it's only 70. So it's a 23-point difference. That's close to 7 wins. That is in the difference to what they should be achieving and where they are. Does this come down to the man management then of Conte? Because it seems to me he's not as happy as he was this season as he was last season, and there's been a lot of key players that may have departed the football club during the summer as well, especially like Nemanja Matic and Diego Costa getting his move to Atletico Madrid for January. Do you think because of the fact that Chelsea have struggled to replace those players that perhaps they haven't lived up to the same expectation that they did last season?
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout, to be honest. I couldn't understand the Matic thing, but I know
it's weird to sell to your rivals, isn't it?
Yeah, I know that wasn't Conte's decision. Apparently, that was Abramovich who saw the money and thought, "Oh, we'll let him go to United." But you just wouldn't sell to your rival categorically. You look at clubs. United and Liverpool don't do business. United and City don't do business. You look at the other top 6 clubs; they don't do business with one another.
No,
or very rarely. And I think last time you'd probably say is normally Ox to Liverpool was one of the last ones if you count Arsenal in their big 6 thing.
Well, I think what it would be is, like, no disrespect for Oxlade-Chamberlain, because what he's done at Liverpool is fantastic, but at Arsenal he wasn't really considered a starter.
Yeah.
So I understand what you mean by business between the top 2 clubs. But initially, I think a lot of people saw that Arsenal were getting a steal to get an Oxlade-Chamberlain for 30 million, but he's gone and proved it completely different at Liverpool. Yeah. So it's credit to him. But I think, like, the only times I've ever seen 2 top clubs selling between each other is the situation at Arsenal because of the fact that they moved to a new stadium and they had to pay off that building the new stadium. So they sold the likes of Fabregas off to Barcelona and Roman van Persie to United. That's the only time I've really seen it. And
Sanchez in there.
And Sanchez in January to Manchester United as well.
It's very strange. Costa, obviously, everyone knows that there was a massive bust-up between him and Conte, and it was irreparable, and he wanted to go back to Spain. So, yeah, we left with their wishes. Then they signed Morata at £70 million. I thought, he should be a good signing. I did think the price tag was a little bit big, but I thought it'd be a good signing. He has got some goals, but he's not lived up to the expectation, and he could be departing the bridge this summer.
Yeah.
With a return to Juve, highly likely. Some of the signings just haven't worked this summer, and I don't know whether it's the system, whether they're just not used to the league. I'm not sure, but I noticed yesterday, Conte on the touchline, he's not his normal animated self. He just looked a dejected figure. He just stood there staring into space, like, what am I supposed to do here, sort of thing. It's a bit of a strange one.
It is a strange one, isn't it? I mean, Eden Hazard with Chelsea this season, 12 goals, the top goal scorer, and you mentioned people like Morata really not really stepping up to the situation, not really filling in Diego Costa's boots, who, was one of the top goal scorers in the Premier League this last season with 20. So there was 8 goals gone missing there. And you're talking about Hazard having to step up to his pace. Even Hazard wasn't even that good because he only scored 16 last season. So there's 4 goals missing from him there. So there's a lot of goals missing from this team really, and they need to figure out a way to change that and make sure things don't happen like that next season. Otherwise, Conte will probably pretty much be out of Chelsea next season, because you think if he doesn't come up with something and they finish in Europa League spots again, he can't be there, can he?
No,
he can't be there.